Yeah, I see him asking people for duels.
Yeah, he's focusing on the little things too. After an OVD or a mix, he's very quick to PM me or whoever he's playing with and say like, "Hey, did you see anything I could do better in this scenario?" And then he'll lay out a scenario of what he was up against. What would you recommend I do? And he understands like there's different options and timing. So I think he's really getting into the nuts and bolts of the game, and it's aiding him a lot in his development.
So he's got a multi PL champs giving him special attention.
He's probably got 25 plus PL champs among all of us who are trying to help this guy out. We just want him to succeed because he's like the project of the community.
Right. There becomes that player you kind of want to start to root for, right? Somebody that you can kind of that everybody kind of gravitates to. And I think he's definitely one of them.
The pressure, is it on? Are we gonna? Is he gonna take over the MVP spot over Chucky?
You're just setting it up for a big hype game, and then he's gonna go 2-9. We're all gonna blame you when it happens.
That's fine. He can learn from it. He's got plenty of points of view to see. All right, who else we got on this lineup? Let's talk about some old folks.
Yeah, we need to see, kind of as they start to unspec here in a few minutes, who's playing what class, because there's a lot of multi-classers on Posty's team especially, where, their first 9 picks, I've seen maybe 6 of these guys play 3 different classes this weekend. It'll be cool to see like who they have in what position as the game gets going.
Is Chompy mousing?
I couldn't tell you for sure. I mean, playing against him, I think he's mousing. If not, he's got exceptional aim for an up-close keyboard player.
He moves like a mouser. It feels like it.
So, does anyone want to go into the whole mousing versus keyboard debate?
No shot.
There's pluses and minuses to both. There's no obvious this one's better than the other.
Yes, I completely agree. As someone who does both, there's pros and cons, and the biggest one is you can't turn as fast on the mouse as a keyboard player, and that's mainly it.
Yeah, you have the fixed ramp up limit. I think it's at 200, maybe 250. But
yeah,
as a keyboard player, you can also feel that sometimes. Like if I'm getting up close to Hearth, I know that I can abuse his own dead zone because he can't keep up with the rotation. And you see that a lot with keyboard players. We're trying to walk through the person we're attacking, knowing they can't spin to keep up with it.
Yeah. Yeah, personally, on keyboard, I keep it at 30 because 0 is just too fast to aim.
Yeah, I'm keyboard. I've always been on 0 as far back as I can remember. If I changed to, it would probably be a disaster.
Yeah, since coming back, I've been a casual mouser. It's easier on the hands. Like you can ask Kev about how he sets up his keyboard, and it's just like, what are you doing?
He explained it to us once, and I still to this day don't understand how he does it.
I've seen it. It's like, what are you doing, man?
Do you think the single letter aliases gives a little bit of fear into the other team?
No, I don't buy that. Never did.
No.
That was definitely an unserious question, by the way.
What names intimidate you? The government names? Kevin? Jake?
I don't think there's many names that intimidate. I did believe back in the day that the different uniforms of CTFDL could be intimidating. For example, and not to pick on BSO, but you look at Smurfs, right? We have these bright blue uniforms where just kids out here having fun. Then you look at BDS. It's black on black. They're out here known as the 5 or 6 time defending champions at that point. So you see the squad coming at you, and it's like, they probably know what they're doing. Whereas new squads come
The black
along,
was definitely nice. I like that color.
Yeah, it was intimidating before playing against them. I mean, it just carried their reputation.
These black guys running around intimidating, huh?
We'll try to edit that part out.
Oh. So let's see here. Final pick on Metal's team, half cut. Is he here?
I don't see him in the arena yet.
Oh, okay. All right, let's see. High impact players, who do you think? We getting some unspecs.
I think Bonds is one of the biggest impact players in this game. We talked about utility, and he was picked as, well, after ZMN, which is multi-classing, but Bonds was first kind of fixed class pick off the board. I think he could have a high impact against this offense. Especially in tonight's games, we haven't seen a medic successfully get behind a offense like we talked about and create TD, try to clear them, just stall them out, where Bonds plays that way all the time. I would expect to see that. In the first game tonight, we saw Ruler, one of the game's top fighters, kind of play SL out of necessity, and now it looks like Sav is suited up as engineer. So we talked about the impact he can have on offense and everything. If they drop into this game 5 versus 5, he's not going to be on offense as their engineer. So again, it's the whole attendance thing in this draft league, making differences from those draft night predictions.
Cloakers!
What kind of version of Infinite are we going to get in this match?
I think there's only one version, right, Hearth? You want to touch on that?
What was the question? Sorry. I was trying to do some training.
What kind of version of Infinite are we going to get in this match?
I'm going to assume that we're probably going to get the talk spot.
Yep. He's going to try to set the CTFDL record for most talks mined per minute. Even if he gets up to 4,000 somehow, he's going to keep mining, try to get more.
I think if he can put some pressure on offense and try to reprogram a turret or two, that'd be pretty epic for this one.
That's going to be asking a lot out of his defense to, maintain a push out. And like we talked about, Bonds is the medic you want in that situation to do it for you to get it clear. But if it's not him, I wouldn't expect the defense they're fielding to be pushing out too much this game. I think we're going to see more of a stabilized 5 versus 5, assuming that's what both teams start the game with.
It's going to be tough, though, because Bonds is a really aggressive medic, and he's up against Jouet, who he plays SL, but I'm not sure how he's going to do well against all that aggression headed his way.
Yep.
So are we going to be a focus of the medic versus the SLs on both sides?
Both sides have much more experienced and advanced medics than they do the opposing SLs.
Oh, so we might be in for a long one? It's going to come down to the swings.
The swings, but I've also noticed at the moment when they swing, right? Because if they're swinging and they're already pushed out already, it's going to make it easy for the defense to kind of swing back home and just push them back out. And so if they're already deep and the swing happens then, you can definitely see some advantages there.
So I see Chompy is in full right now. So he's likely going to be on offense.
He's likely infill just for the flagging at the start.
Correct, and then he will switch to an infantry for offense, right?
Yeah,
That's
that would be our
usually the standard
expectation.
play.
So then, let's see, our hero will be fighting against which DMs? I'm thinking Flo, as he typically plays DM.
Yeah, it could be
BT.
low Epion tactical core, or yeah, BT setup is infantry, not NG. But yeah, we talked about he drafted back-to-back utility. Now he's having BT play infantry, which probably is defense for him. And BT's a good fighter. You know, I've played against him and with him a few times. He's very serviceable as a DM.
Not a verb.
Oh, Verb's just the best NG the game's ever seen, so you can take that back whenever you're ready.
Oh, I meant for fighting.
We all know Albert was the best engineer only because he had the lag.
Never heard of Albert. Is that like a new player or talking about?
I can't tell if you're joking or not.
Well, let's. Well, for BT to not be playing engineer, and we have Infinite, a engineer. I think his banner correctly represents him.
Yeah, that seems fair based on what most of us know.
So let's see. Will Infinite actually try to play as an engineer, or will he do silly things like 10-man info?
Before building a base?
Game is on. What do you guys? Quick prediction before this game doesn't get too deep. Who do we think is going to win? I think, for me personally, I think Posty's team may win this one.
It's
Why?
gonna be tough. Sav's engineer, he's not infantry, so that really takes away a lot of the fighting power on Posty's team.
Yeah, I kind of made
like
the prediction yesterday, offline of this, that if one of these games is going to sudden death, I think it would be this one. We're going to see some pretty strong defenses holding off a little bit less experienced offenses for a long time. I'm expecting this to be a longer one. If I had to pick a winner, I'd probably pick Posty's team because they have, solid leadership running all different kinds of formats in this game.
Yeah, that's something that sticks out to me is the strong defensive lineups on both sides, the weaker offenses. So I would definitely agree with your statement.
What's ZMN doing on PTT?
Did not see that, not sure.
Copy that. Okay, so it seems like the teams are establishing their bases.
Yeah, and like we talked about in pregame, all tactical unspec already is heavy. Figure he's not going to be O-heavy in that case. Because they're on Titan side, it's no shock that they're taking F4. Tactical's very comfortable at that base and A7, similar to Tyrael, who we've seen play a couple times tonight already. And then on the contrasting side of that, you see Posty's team taking A5, where they have stronger imp play, so if you're not going to play a heavy, it makes more sense to take a base where most of it's done in a passive way, and then you're fighting around these boxes with more tanky players.
Looks like we were all wrong with the other DM over at F4. It's Rev, not Revenge, the one that catches RTs left and right, but just R.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with Rev, so I can't provide any feedback on him. Never seen him play in any capacity.
Is he new?
And Bonds is already starting it off with the TP Blinks.
Yeah, and that's like the one we talked about before, where it doesn't clear the offense, but stalls them long enough. So now the NG has time to fix whatever he needs to fix. And we look at Infinite, who's he being a wall, this is the perfect time for him to clean up those blocker sentries. Could have went mining or something. Now they still have that momentum, where the offense is pushing, but they've already been weakened because they're attaching at a weak state. So things are looking very safe at F4 for now.
A couple bad deaths here at B5. There's 4 attackers doing nade damage. A plasma is down. The defense is attaching back home.
So Pistor is the heavy at F4. He is setting up on the back MG, which is something I talked about earlier. That last clip of AC kills the MG, whereas if he had gone the RT, the RT would still be standing with around 60 to 70 HP. I really like that decision to take the MG.
This is an interesting offense, though, at A5. It looks like Cerrito's running foot JT.
Yeah, so his main purpose, and I actually like it in A5 and D6, is to utilize the walls with the bouncing GL, where it is inf heavy, so when you mix up your SLVB, the electron beamer, with the grenade launcher of the JT, you can get some quick, kind of unexpected death, and that opens it up for the infantry to do a lot of damage.
But now, do you believe it should be 3 inf JT or 2 inf JT with an O heavy?
I actually like either of them. I don't mind this setup at all. I'd be happy with either of them in this scenario.
I think if Marta can get his GLs going at a good angle, there's a couple, like once you push out of the turret room, that's a very small choke point. GL can be pretty powerful there, and also when you push in right where Abath is, up top with ZB. But we'll see what happens here. 3 inf JT and how powerful it is.
Yeah, and we talked about Marduk in the pregame, like talented multi-classer. So if this game goes on long enough, it would not shock anyone to see him to change to, one of 3 other classes on offense. He can play info, he can play infantry, he can play heavy. It's just whatever rotations they want to go through.
Hey, look at that. Loaf Pincher's learning from Bonds. Good.
While Waylander and Greed doing some work, pushing out. Looks like there is no viable threat here at A5.
Yep.
So, of these offenses, which one looks like is gonna do some like flag capping first?
I think it's still a little too early to say. When the game starts in this and things stabilize and you're not losing your base in the first 4 minutes, you're still trying to figure out like tendencies and armor types of the other team. So once you realize like, hey, this infantry's using P6, you can play differently against that and start to capitalize on that. Whether it's changing the lineup you're running or something to that effect. And at the same time as I'm talking, Bonds again with a flank. Looks like it could be a clear if he stays on top of the FL. And it is.
And we get our swing.
I was gonna say that I would go for their offense. Jouet, but Jouet died. But I do like that they have the heavy there, and I think they can do some damage if the Jouet can stay alive.
It does make me sad, though, because that team has 4 people in spec, so there should have been plenty of people getting spec info. It's not that hard to find where the medic put the TB with that kind of support.
Yeah, I think that's one of those things where in this we're so less official draft league, maybe these guys aren't practicing, maybe they don't have dedicated spec info. But yeah, there's a couple things you want to pay attention to. We've talked about blinks to a long extent so far, whether it's storms or blinks, but yeah, you've got to have eyes on that in a competitive setting like this.
I can see that as something that will be forgotten, or at least in these draft league teams. Because typically in a mix, you don't have like a spec guy, right? You just kind of just have your 10 people in. So It might not be something they're really preparing for. But hopefully they make note of it for next game.
Yep.
One thing I'd like to note about Posty, about how far he pushed out. And I guarantee you he was looking for any infiltrator to run past him. And I'm
Absolutely.
sure there's no TDs behind him. As an experienced medic, there's no blink that's going to occur right now and ruin everything.
Yeah, and they talked about, we have the notification now that Axis added a few days ago, where if an info gets into the game, you get the soundbite, you get the arena message for it. So I'm guessing Posty's got good awareness check on that, where he's not going to push out aggressively once an info comes into the game, should one come in.
Back to the 5v5.
I think Abath is playing somewhat passive, which is good for his team to keep them up, right? So it looks like Posty was trying to TB blank but couldn't because he was too far away.
And just like we mentioned, there's an info sub. It's actually on Posty's team, and I would think Bonds is taking note of it.
It's Sav though, and he's the engineer.
Yep. So sometimes you'll see this on Tin Man, like in mixes you'll see Infinite switch off NG and go into info if needed. We typically don't see it in this 5v5 environment, so not sure if they're prepping a sub or they have some other plan, but yeah, they're trying something different it looks like.
Do you think it's wise for an engineer to be swapped out during 10 man?
I don't know. I kind of like the value of having an engineer on the hoverboard because those vehicles amid all the chaos, if they get a couple reps to go their way, they can be aborting. On the other side of defense, if you've already pushed out, for example, we've seen Decker's team do twice in A7 tonight on 10-man D. If you're pushed out of the bottom, you might as well get the NG out for another info. There's no turret threat at that point, and info has tremendous value on the 10-man.
Very interesting seeing this on a 5v5 though. You have to have a lot of confidence in your team to do that.
Yep.
But it could be it's almost very sneaky, like, to be smart, because like you could actually go past your OMs and attack the SL, but that time Sov decided to rep out anyway, because I doubt anyone's wearing enhanced sensors.
Yep. Especially on offense.
Right.
So we do see Cerrito his class change into infantry like we talked about, so it's the JT now running a different style of offense.
Does Sov have his talks in the DS? He does, I think.
What's the timer on that? It's like a minute, maybe 15 minutes or something?
He has a lot of talks in the DS. So I think he's just... if he has plenty of talks, he's just going to be an infiltrator to harass the SL. Which, for anyone who plays SL, knows how annoying it is to fight infiltrators.
I will say it could be pretty valuable swinging as well, right? If he swings to offense, you can
Absolutely.
be...
I think that's also a sign that, back to you have your established defenses. Their defense is so strong that they're not taking turret damage. He doesn't need to mine more talks. So he can just play Infiltrator, a more impactful role at this time.
Yep.
Hey, so
I like when teams try new things.
Sorry. Where are these mythical SL enhanced sensors that don't take up a slot? Because I don't have sensors as SL.
Yeah, I think it's the belt sensors. They take up a slot, but there's no regen cost or weight to it.
Wait,
but it does give them mini-map visibility.
Where do I purchase this thing?
It's under equipment fighting suit. I'm not sure when they were added, but I have seen them used.
Wait, what's it called?
Belt sensors.
Belt?
Belt.
I don't see it. Oh well.
Looks like P is putting work on that rocket turret. And they do... Infinite goes down as well on E4. Let's see if Mechanic can hold at least.
Didn't do much.
I really like what Mechanic is doing down there. He's kind of getting them distracted so they can hold the choke. Right now it's just chompy, but that little bit of valuable time could be effective.
Yeah, and they have solved there again. You know, we talked about it. You create this form of chaos where you're swinging back and forth, and if your team has an info line, you can create these big windows to do damage. And that's what you're seeing at F4 right now.
Very innovative. I don't think we would have seen this, but in the draft league, it's good to try new things.
So, one thing I'd like to note for tactical, for any heavies out there, tactical dodges. I think that's a big thing that a lot of heavies nowadays don't do. They just sit there and spam AC and think their infantry's got it covered. And then when they die, it's like, well, my DNs suck. I think tactical is a good example of being able to dodge.
He's very old school in the sense that he uses way more MML than he does AC.
Here's Sov.
The Bond
they
has
get
TD
TD
up
out?
on this.
Yeah, Bond is just there chilling.
Good try though. And that was well played by Bonds too. You know, he didn't get too close to the action, so he's sitting back with 400 plus energy. No real risk of dying as they attach in and look for him. Whereas, you know, less experienced medics may run directly at Saw, and as people attach, they're in threat of either having their TD turned off or just straight up killed. But Bond stayed at a safe range to keep it TD'd.
He immediately recognized his number one priority at that point was to stay alive and just keep TD on in the flag room. Let the killing be done by the turrets and the other people on his defense.
The way this is gonna... Go ahead.
We have an opinion. Hot swapping classes is cancer. What do you guys think?
I don't think it's that different than it used to be at this point, where it's done in the refs chat. I think it feels better as the players swap classes and not rely on someone else, where it's a parameter time that's much different ref to ref. You know, you used to call a swap back in the day, and it's like, okay, it's gonna take 8 seconds for one ref, whereas another ref it's gonna take 2 seconds. To take that variability out and just put it on the player, I think is a big improvement for the game.
I agree. I like the improvement. You put less emphasis on complaining on the refs. Like, okay, you're too slow, but this takes all that work out.
So you think if it's possible, you should do it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So on that topic, what about wall laming?
I
Personally,
don't have
I
a strong
think,
opinion on it.
yeah, neither do I. And I feel like if it's possible, you should do it. I think because experienced medics know how to not stand by the wall. But you know, to each their own is their opinion. So, is in that case, is that you can do it, but you should not do it.
I think it becomes controversial in CTF because you have flags involved, but in like a USL league or USL, it happens quite often, and I think it's something that players should just be aware of. If you're near a wall, you can die. That's my 2 cents on it.
I feel the same thing applies in CTF. If you're near a wall, you can die. It's like disruptor, infiltrator, disruptor. If you're near
Exactly.
a wall, you can be disrupted.
Look like Solve is still info. This is thought he would change back, but it looked like his defense is just holding it down for him.
Yeah, I mean, they've been applying pressure since he switched, and the way this originally broke open at F4, it wasn't Sav swinging initially, it was L. They were able to take another fighter to offense, leave Sav at home for a run or two, and then they built up this lead against the turrets. We talk about snowballing a lead on either side. That's what Sav's team or Posty's team has done in this case, and I wouldn't expect them to change off as long as it's working this effectively.
Puts a lot more pressure on Infinite too. He's probably not able to mine as much, right? With this much pressure.
Yep.
It looks like they're swinging home a lot more too. So this could be a very long game.
It looks like Metal's team made a sub. They pulled out Rev and put in Cortana.
Yeah, and Cortana, that's another kind of newer player, hub Enfil in most cases. We see him set up as Enfil, trying to attack A5 now.
Has any turret damage occurred at A5?
I don't believe so. Maybe the first push when they had the JT get a pick with GL, but beyond that, they've been pushed out or swinging for the majority of the game.
And once you have this much pressure, it almost is like you start swinging people home. Because now you have Greed and Waylander, they were swinging on offense. So as long as they can sustain that pressure, there probably won't be much happening at A5.
You think they should just 10-man it?
I don't think they need to 10-man it yet. You know, they have lost one base essentially where they lost most of their turrets, but they were able to stabilize after that. I think you've got to give your team a little more of a chance than this early into the game to say, hey, this isn't sustainable, let's drop it. And that's probably
Yeah,
on the team
might be too
captain
early.
to figure out. You know, it fell apart like I mentioned because they couldn't keep up with the macro play of the swing, where Bell switches over to F4 and Inful is effectively defending A5. You've got to realize that on both sides and be like, hey, let's take advantage of A5 while we have it. They didn't. They burned a few runs, and then they got stuck in the trap of, we don't have an Inful to push out of F4, and now Sov's here.
So explain to me, actually, or to the crowd, we're running heavies now. A lot more heavy focused game, no JTs. Let me see what's going on here.
Yeah, I don't know if I could give a specific reason as to why. I can tell you, on a selfish level, I prefer it that way, and I played a lot of CTFDL behind JT offenses. I never liked them because it feels a little bit fluky to me, especially when they're, you know, eating tranks here and there. They're getting a lucky bounce with a spike where they just accelerate way faster than anyone can rotate to hit them. I like the power offenses. I think they're more stabilized at this point with the current community, or even for the new players, like those that are serving as mentors to the new folks. They're trying to teach them how to play power. It just feels like that's the way this game should be played.
So I think a good thing to note is tactical versus pister, or P. I will point out, Tactical's just been sniping Pister, and Pister is doing the thing that Tactical does. Has not been doing the thing that Tactical does, is dodge.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I mean, that could be predicted looking at the lineups. We talked about Tactical, and he's playing on this giant Rezo, so he sees the incoming damage. Nothing's a surprise. He's got a reputation in skirmish. I can't speak to it because it's not my zone, but he just seems like a really smart player. He's aware of what's coming and knows how to get ready for it.
Oh, he's a skirmish guy?
That's my understanding, yeah.
Of course. Yep. For those who don't know, skirmish, the bullets go very far and very fast. So you want to shoot very far, and Tactical's playing heavy, which wants to shoot very far.
Now, Pister, on the other hand, does dabble in both leagues, but I do like how he's playing here. He's very aware. In this run right here, he got hit by a lot of AC, but at least his turret damage, he's moving pretty well, in my opinion.
Oh, exactly. You can triangulate exactly what's going on. Pister shooting a turret, Tactical shooting Pister.
Yep. And so it's not announced here because it's not an on-info swap, but Sov did swap back to Engineer. And I expect him to reset those sentries, maybe heal everything back up to full. And then if his defense keeps pushing out like this, maybe we see him swap again to a fighting class or an info, something like that. I think he's committing to this kind of swapping playstyle as long as his defense looks strong.
So who are
Looks
his
like-
defense?
His defense is made
Breed,
up of,
and Waylander.
yeah.
Oh, so obviously 3 strong infantry.
Yeah,
Right.
3 experienced, PL playing infantry. Comfortable too. And right now, Waylander takes a bad death, and you have to wonder, is Sov still NG? Can he get home if
Bale's
needed?
about to join him.
Yeah, because you would expect Cerrito to set up at this point. Cerrito being Marduk. Sov's info, he's going to try to mitigate that damage. He doesn't want to keep switching back and forth, so you want to stop this, then push him out.
And we see another manly offense with the heavy. No JT trumps.
Very interesting with the infill on defense is you can move that heavy, right? So you get him off his track to stop the turret damage. But once those sentries are down and the imps are not holding, I can't see how he stays infill. You may have to switch back.
Yeah, so it's cool here. You can see Sov kind of echoed what I would assume is the same thing I was saying. You want to get that push out, so either Sov or Posty called an additional inf home. And Yosh came home that time, giving them the numbers advantage. So again, that's just outplaying the swing, this time on defense, whereas last time it was on offense.
Great communication on their part right now.
Yeah,
From how they're
has to be.
managing this subs and everything. I can only imagine also the drain with EB and Call. If they can get their fighters to kill, their OMs are gonna be pretty drained and die pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's brutal when you have an info on you as an infantry just EBing you. And now again, we're seeing these DMs not carry ES. Bonds, an experienced medic, does have ES and stops that potential storm that Sov was going for. Now Postie's team needs an answer at A5. They get it, Soft shows up, Heavy drops instantly, so the Reds aren't in too much danger.
He's really timing that really well.
Yeah.
Nice kills by Abbott to keep them from pushing out, but I don't think it will do that much harm to them. They'll just attach quickly. At least they're getting some more offense consistency.
Yep, and what Noah mentioned a couple minutes ago does seem to keep happening on the other side of the map at F4, where P or Pistol is locked in on a turret. He doesn't feel or see Tactical just seeing him down. So he's eating 6 or 7 in a row and just falling over. Whereas, more experienced Heavy, they're moving a little bit. They can either feel that coming due to energy warning, or they can see it due to large resolution. Just move a little bit to get off that line, and you can keep attacking in between.
Yeah, he's doing well with turret damage. It's just getting there and not getting streamed. If he can work on that, he'll be much better.
So what do you think we need to see to break this stagnation?
Well, we could see something here in a moment at A5, for example, where again, they're going to need an answer because those blocker sentries are gone. So if Sav shows up like he has now, but they don't get, a cleanup, they're going to start taking turret damage that they can't immediately answer. So it still costs him time to switch class, go back to NG, wait for that swap if needed and whatnot. So I think for A5, if these DMs misplay a little bit, this offense could quickly take advantage of it. For F4, I think the OMs are going to have to move tactical to create that space for Pistor. I don't think Pistor is going to magically change his approach and start dodging these screens, so he's going to need some help on his team to move the Heavy to get off him.
Yeah, I agree. With the A5 thing, the defensive infantries, if they can play a solid game, they'll hold this for the entire match. But once you make that crucial mistake... Nice. So once they make that crucial mistake, then that would be the problem here. I'm thinking Sav is going infantry because of the offense and not the defensive part, and maybe try to apply more pressure on them.
He's clearly fighting on defense. But yeah, interesting. Another interesting note, right? If you're playing a offensive Heavy, you would be expecting heavy turret damage, right? But that's clearly not the case right now. So little turret damage, Sav is not even playing engineer.
Yeah, I think it's a credit to the swinging playstyle though from Postie's team. Like I said, they're winning swings on both sides of this, where they're getting to offense faster when they should, and they're getting home right before things are getting critical. I don't think it's so much the lineups; it's just their coordination's been really good. And just as I say that, Bond again, who I think is the MVP of that team so far, is pushing them out, almost getting the clear, but the late attaches come in.
And Duet dies pretty much instantaneously. No clear though.
Though. He stayed alive just long enough.
Yeah, I think Sav and team's offense is going to be a little bit too much if they can keep this pressure up. They're definitely favored right now.
Yeah, they just dropped an RT and Infinite still in the caves mining.
And Infinite still has extra talks.
No, but the OMs are doing their job. They're getting out front, making tactical move, and getting pissed all the time in the world.
And this is where the experience of Sav's going to come in a lot, because when you push this hard, I guarantee Sav's calling his defense to swing with him. So he anticipates the swing of Bond's team ahead of time, and they're ready. You can see the numbers trickling in at F4,
yeah,
where it's not 5 versus 8, it's 8 versus 8, so they're ready to take advantage.
And I love where they're at. I love where they're at as well. They're deep there, so if they attach, they're in good position to do some damage here.
This would be heaven for Pistor, this position, if he was up.
If I'm Yosh, I try to hold here as much as possible.
That's going to be hard because you're looking at the numbers right there and you're counting 6 to 2.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. We're at the 28-minute mark right now. If things keep going like this, unless something really drastically changes, with a lineup or some kind of huge swing. There have been swings already. I can see this going to sudden death.
So who do you think will win the 10-man?
It's hard to make that prediction because it's all about base position. You know, where does the 10-man start? If you capture the flags out of F4 and you bring them to A5, but the opposing team's already at the turret, you're going to pick the opposing team. On the other hand, if you capture the flags and you're pushed out, let's say 60 to 70% of the base, you have the advantage there.
So I guess it'll be how things are looking when we approach sudden death.
If we get to sudden death. One of the critiques on Infinite, that last big play we saw, where they lost all their turrets again, is he'll build this huge stock. You know, Hurt said it before the game, it's the talk spot, but he's not there to use the talks. They were sitting on 250 talks when they lost all their turrets. He's in the mines trying to make that stack higher. If he had been at home, maybe it didn't look that dire the whole time. He could have been there providing EB, repairing, and again, you're seeing a huge number shift at F4 right now.
Oh, absolutely.
You just mentioned it right now. He's not there. I'm assuming some incoming damage is coming. So that is the kind of like the con to his playstyle is you have unlimited talks, but if you're not there, you could literally burn through more talks than you're mining. Because all these turrets are just like getting hammered right now.
Infinite is notably not a good fighter. So I feel like he may be more, he can contribute more to his team through his turrets than fighting himself.
I think while that's true, Electron Beamer, which we've talked about in a lot of games tonight, is one of the easiest weapons to use in the game. You just fire it at a wall in the general vicinity, and it's going to bounce around and make a big difference.
Right, because you two EBs with a medic and engineer versus one. I mean, you can do a lot more energy drain there. So his playstyle may cost him this match.
Does Infinite even have EB?
He usually has EB and Gravitron, one of the more unique setups, but he's just not home often using it.
What do you feel is the meta engineer setup?
I think it's EB, Flamethrower, maybe one BR, something like that. And then all the kits and hoverboard. BR being battle rifle in this case.
Right, that's heavy. Ensign plus BR is heavy.
Yeah,
and EB is a given, obviously.
Yeah, we've got Decker who plays Engineer, whereas I don't think it's typically EB, Ensign, and the grenades, so that makes sense.
Yeah, Ensign for BR.
You typically don't have BR as an Ensign, or as an Engineer.
How do you feel Bonds is playing a match so far, Hearth? To me, I feel like he's really holding it down with tactical there, being anchors on defense.
He's still
making
great.
Smart decisions.
The only criticism I ever have of Bonds is, and it's just more of a playstyle thing than anything, he's more of a Trank first, EB second kind of guy, whereas I'm more of an EB first, Trank second guy. But versus Jouet, who's pretty much, he's not really up to par, versus Bonds' medic, either playstyle is going to work.
Oh, the EB suddenly comes out on those comments?
He was listening. He has the comms open on his other screen. He actually just told me that.
So A5 now taking a little bit of turret damage, so I'll still set up his imp. He's going to have to switch to NG or have someone switch to heal that turret. Otherwise, Metal, who I think is leading his team from spec because he's not in the game but is on their sub-team, he should be making calls saying, hey, don't play so passively, just take in turret damage. There's no way for them to recover it.
Right now he's making the call because they just got
a huge swing. Yeah.
Bonds with a blink.
Again,
looks
yeah.
Clear.
Infinite was home there, and there's no notable damage here at F4. See what's going on in the other base.
Yeah, Salve back on Engineer. He's going to heal that up, set his blockers, and make his next decision. But we just think about the impact both these engines have had this game. So it is abnormal for someone to be switching off Engie all the time into a fighting class, but still, we're talking about Infinite, who's, sure, he's mining the most talks of everyone, but he's not home contributing to the defense. Whereas Salve is home contributing, Salve's going to enemy contributing. It's a very different playstyle.
Yeah,
The first
very
thing Salve shoots is
contrasting
EB. Strongest gun in the game, EB.
Just saw Ghost Bomber join the game. I'm not sure who he got subbed in for, but he joins the game on Bond's team.
Energy is
So
the
whether you-
strongest resource in this game. Just FYI noobs. Energy,
Yeah, whether you-
energizers, drain it.
No, I was just gonna say whether you think that their playstyles are good or bad. I think that their decisions and what they're doing is definitely affecting this game and making their team whole as long as they have been.
Has
We see-
Posty
Go ahead.
has Posty done any TBs?
I think I saw him do some earlier on Abbott, when they were in this kind of fixed 5v5 format, but honestly the majority of this game has been split to a 6-4 or an 8-8, and most of the actions happened at F4. The Posty's had a very passive, wait to see what happens kind of game.
This has not been a normal 5v5 game, not by any stretch of the imagination.
No, yeah. It's almost like a 3v3, 7v7, and then goes up and down, but it's very abnormal for a 5v5.
And now we see the numbers advantage at A5.
And Sov with the impeccable timing, he's engineer right now, just when he needed to be. We're approaching 35 minutes, so 10 minutes left for sudden death.
Yeah, and sudden death is pretty controversial because most people, watching this stream, whether they're coming from Skirmish or the CTF community, it's obvious that Posty's team has had the upper hand. They're the ones applying the pressure and whatnot. The other teams are trying to find a window on Metal's side. If it goes to sudden death and then Metal's team gets that flag, it's frustrating. It's a weird coin flip thing, and there's a lot of discussions happening about, is this going to be the way going forward? We're going to leave it up to chance like this just to get the games out of the way. Personally, I don't like the setup as is, but I think it's going to be this way at least for the remainder of the draft league.
What suggestion would you be for a better system?
I like the different suggestions folks have had about reducing player power on both sides as time goes on. I've seen one increased death timers. Of course that's not going to feel good, but it's very fair to both teams, where at a certain threshold the game gets harder. Whereas when it comes to a flag spawning in a random location, that's not really equal for both teams. We don't have perfect spawns coming out of the dropship, so even if you send people to the dropship and it's a race, it's not going to be even on both sides. But I like the player power reduction one. If people want to get the games over, instead of playing the long games, I like slowly kind of choking the game out until a team can win.
I think that's a great idea. I think a good way to reduce player power would be once sudden death starts, if you die, you're dead and are no longer in the game. That will end the game quickly.
That's a little extreme for me, but I can see where you're coming from.
I see where you're coming from, but depending on what position the offenses and defenses are when it goes, yeah, it's way too drastic.
Perhaps, but if you know when sudden death is going to occur, there's a specific time frame, then it's like, okay, well, we need to conserve ourselves at this point in time, or are we in a winning position? It's we need to make a call, which is kind of like sudden death, right?
Speaking on that, I think teams will start to notice that. Either will do the aggressive thing, or they'll play passive and try to gear up for... You'll see a bunch of infiltrators start to sub in here soon, once it gets closer. And in fact, one advantage that Sov is already infiltrator, so if he can get his entries up, he'll have the advantage already.
Think about the possibility of a legendary duel that decides a 45-minute long game. All the pressure is on you to win it for your team, you're last man standing. I think that'd be pretty epic. the
Don't you
potential.
want the win to be because of the team, not because of the individual?
Well, your teams are even for 45 minutes, and then your standouts are going to stand out.
It feels a little anticlimactic,
I
or
feel
maybe
the opposite.
either too extreme. But yeah, I think some kind of balance is needed for whatever decisions made.
Isn't that
And it
contradictory? Sorry, anticlimactic, but like not climactic.
Well, it's kind of reducing the effect of the first 45 minutes of the game. So if you make it this sudden death thing where either you stay dead or it becomes this dueling ceremony, essentially where you're trying not to die because you're perm dead, you're taking away the lead that you built on minerals and whatnot. Whereas if it's something more neutral to the game but makes an impact and more punishing to take deaths, like an increased death timer, that's a much different evaluation than, oh, you called a rep RT, you're out of the game.
I see. Well, I think I probably have the bias as a dueler myself, as I would like to win this whole game because of me, and you know how it goes.
wouldn't that be epic?
Exactly. That would be climactic.
We're approaching 39 minutes now. See what kind of things teams do here. I wonder if Solve's team makes a move. I said no, it's not Solve's team, but somebody's going to eventually do something.
Yep, and we saw that in 7th Plague versus Fangs Out on the first night of the Draft League, where both teams kind of felt it around 41 minutes that it was going to reach the sudden death. And we saw, a lot of people just spreading out for the map on the different spawns, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's all the bridges are eligible, and there's a spot in the caves that's eligible.
I believe there's actually 2 spots in the cave that are eligible.
Yep.
But you're right. You will start seeing very likely class changes in the next few minutes as people prep for it.
Oh, like Sov for the past 45 minutes?
And you could see things like instead of attacking 5 versus 5, it drops into this 2 versus 2, or 2 people attacking 3 people spreading the map to hunt the flag around 42 to 44 minutes. That's what we saw in the first game of the league. And there is a cool method where the opposing team can punish that. Instead of hunting with them, you just say, hey, I just saw them make the subs, they have 2 to 3 people roaming the map, let's take this 90-second window and go take their base. And I'd love to see a team try to do that.
Yeah, that's interesting. We haven't seen that yet, but maybe this could be the match for it.
Yeah, Sov is infiltrating.
Different strategies based off of that.
So Pister dodged the AC, but he didn't dodge the infantry.
They're different play styles with certain O heavies, and I think he's more of the type to just kind of focus on the turrets and not do any fighting by the boxes. So, I'm not sure how much he's been playing O heavy, but could play a factor in why he's doing that.
And right now we see him set up on the outer turrets that Infinite, I think, is the only engineer in this whole community that sets up, where he'll build that huge pile of tox and spin it on outers to frustrate the SLR offense should they get pushed out. But we also see that backfire sometimes where he's focusing on what's happening out there, the opposing team pushes deep and starts killing his turrets outside the flag room.
Now, if they get the flag and they go to F4 and it's in sudden death, I mean, you have outside turrets to deal with.
Yep.
I would assume Pistor needs to get these down ASAP because sudden death is coming wrong.
Yep. And I'm sure someone's made that call to him. Again, I think Metal's coaching some spec. He probably made that call of, we already have a heavy in, let's get those cleaned up before we get to 44 or 45 minutes.
Will tactical 30k before it's over.
No, I don't think there's going to be enough time.
Not enough bodies running into the AC.
We're looking at a 72-4 record from tactical right now. KD ratio or kill death stats.
You shouldn't need too many more kills to hit it. He's got time.
Yep.
Looks like they were able to take.
Yeah, so Pistor switched over to Info. They're starting to plan whatever the sudden death strategy is on there. All those rets were cleared at E3, but if you're looking at Infinite by chance, they're building them again. So he's using a limited resource to build a luxury item, and we have seen that backfire before.
Yeah, I would think if Bonds and company get the flag, I think that they're favored to hold.
Well,
So we'll see what happens here.
So Metal's team has infiltrators in spec. He's having the sub stun right now, as opposed to actually announcing the arena message. So he'll have infos in, but there will be no messages, or at least currently, because they've been posted minutes ago.
Sneaky. Do they need to add that as a rule to, like with cloakers, also state switches?
Possibly, but you could also have your argue that your captain should be aware of whoever's doing spec info and say, okay, this player's even subbed in. What class are they? So, I mean, yeah, you could say they should add it, or there could be opposition to not add it. But I can see your point.
I mean, if they're coming down from spec, like you said, Hearth, it's no different than it was in CTFDL. It's done in some form of a captain's ref chat, and then both teams can see it. They can make that check just like we did, straight to the player chart, and warn our team, like, hey, this class is coming in.
Yeah,
I'm not mentioning it as it was sneaky. I just find it interesting that he's going to use other players to play infiltrator as opposed to the ones he already has in the game.
Yep.
All right.
Well, would a new player find that fair?
Hopefully they have the communication and the leadership to just be able to say, hey, look, I'm putting in an infiltrator, they're putting in an infiltrator, be aware. Especially at this time of the game. You should have ES.
We're all old here. We just deal with it. We're used to these things. But
sudden death. Chompy's got it. Chompy's got it. Top bridge.
No TD on it.
It was speed.
And that's what I mean. You know, you get to this weird coin flip scenario where it's like, okay, did they really earn that, or how does this work? And from there, they're scrambling to get there.
Chompy, the up-and-coming MVP.
As we were discussing earlier about 10-mans, right? You notice how they're just at the choke, and Duet's there. This is a bad position for the 10-man offense to be in at the last choke. Well, not the last choke, the beginning choke. So they have to work just as harder.
Yeah, there's no progress from the base, and a lot of 10-man is about organizing reps from the infiltrators. So they can create this bubble to push you back, and because you're already up front of the base, the infils can safely take a death, exhaust all their reps like we saw them do a second ago, and they're going to be back for the next push. Whereas in a normal scenario, they may only get that first one before the flag room is threatened. So you have these 12-second windows as the infils die where you need to make progress on the base. And if you don't, or the base is too much of a walk like we're seeing here, you're pretty much stonewalled, and now you're panicking.
Yep. And great reps, timing of reps by the defense so far, and probably accounts for what infils they have in. But they timed it so that one is then over, and then the next one dies, and the next one comes up. So right now, Sov is repping, and then it's Duet. So, and they'll just keep doing that.
Too far for them to go.
Yep. So 2 for 2 now in sudden death games. The team that captures the flag wins with no abort. That's just how this is going so far.
MVP choices?
If it had been the other team, I would say Bonds. If it's on the winning team, I think Sov can take MVP on this.
I think, yeah, it's a safe bet. It should be Sov.
Yeah, I agree. If it was the other team, I actually would have went with Tactical, but I think it should probably be unanimous that Sov would be MVP.
I completely agree with all of you guys, but I would give